Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Get a chance to tell you about the Cayman Data Protection Law. It's going to be a wonderful opportunity to share with Richard Carty as we invite you to be a part of our conversation. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Fidelity Bank. For all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. A chance to talk about the Cayman Data Protection legislation that is going to come into effect at the end of September. So just almost days away as we look at it in the studio from BDO, Mr. Richard Carty, one of the Risk Advisory Services. As a director, when we look at the notion of a financial services, maybe the early days of the confidential preservation legislation, this idea that Cayman was seen as this haven and the protection of one's privacy. At one time it was guarded, then it became suspect, and there were these, comments on the political trails, even in U.S. presidential campaigns, and now where we see the importance of it globally. But as we get into talking more about our legislation, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for reaching out to us and giving us a chance to not only inform the public, but maybe advise some of us how impactful this is, not just for us in our business environment, but for us in our daily lives here as well as globally. So good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
All right. Now, tell us about it. I mean, this particular bit of legislation, some of us are intimately familiar with it. We probably helped with some of the comments and input when the government's back and forth with the different drafts and some of us are going, there's a data protection law. When? So from one end of the spectrum being very knowledgeable to others going, really? We didn't have that before. There are a lot of us that are still yet to be informed in how it could affect us. So take us through as we get a chance to be educated and informed.
Indeed, yeah. This particular piece of legislation or this law is going to cause a big shake-up, probably one of the biggest shake-ups in regulation that we've seen, certainly from its parent, which is the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe, which this particular law is patterned off, is going to have a tremendous impact in terms of how we as businesses transact business, how we as businesses manage personal information. As you said, it comes into effect on the 30th of September. That's the proposed date. It is a global recognized principle. It is going to impact businesses globally, i.e., any business outside of Cayman that processes data subject information within Cayman is going to have to comply with the law. Business here is going to have to comply, and obviously any business outside of Cayman is going to have to comply. So this has a global reach, very, very similar to GDPR. GDPR has a global reach. It's a global regulation.
If I may ask, as we look at our own data protection legislation, and then at some point, if it's opportune, we could even look at maybe some see it as a complement, FOI, in an extent. But looking at the global legislation, the GDPR, when that was first being sort of a big thing almost in all the news media globally. Anybody, anywhere, logging on to any sort of website or using anything online was affected by this. And I share with you, I remember someone here getting notification from a business here that said, because of this legislation, we're now going to change our protocols in-house and we're going to require you to agree to certain things. And the person said, but I'm in Cayman. I'm not doing anything in Europe. Why are you, the local business, sort of involving me? But this is the extent. This is now global. I thought that G in general should be global instead of general, but it's a different thing. Take that part of the legislation, since ours is modeled and patented off of that, and how are the two, dissimilar, or are they almost the same?
Almost the same. The terminology is the same. Data controllers, data processors is the same in terms of where the law is going to be exercised is the same. There are a number of exceptions within the data protection law, which is different. There was one critical part of the law in GDPR, which is different to the data protection law. The GDPR has this thing called rights to be forgotten or rights to erasure. The data protection law doesn't have the same sort of thump, if you like. But in general, they're relatively the same. And this is going to be probably why this is going to be the biggest shakeup, both in Cayman and the Caribbean region, because most of the Caribbean don't have such I wouldn't say aggressive, but such an aggressive piece of legislation as the data protection law.
And as we speak to Mr. Richard Cartier about this, I recall, must have been a news article or something somewhere written somewhere, that were making comments out of the U.S. Sort of legislature. Some senators or the like were lamenting that young people, and I was wondering if they were even talking about themselves, and youthful indiscretions as they get older, more mature and involved in public life and the like, they may want to go online and be able to say, well, that picture while in college or in high school, this thing that might look as complimentary and flattering could be taken into context or was a youthful indiscretion. We would like to be able to have that removed from online. And this right to be forgotten was being championed a decade, I don't know how long ago now. But we don't have that here. So once online, always online, once access can be accessible. Is that something that may be a failure on our part not to include that, given that the GDPR has it?
Well, we've got something slightly similar, whereby if we have a good case for our information not to be used, the ombudsman could engage and see whether what we're requesting is valid or not. So we have that ability to prevent whoever's using our information to stop using it. We can request that information be raised if it no longer serves its intended purpose. But I think as we see regulation come across or sweep across the Caribbean, more and more we're going to begin to align ourselves with industry standards. And there's a reason for that. Developed countries can't afford to leave semi-developed or undeveloped countries behind. They can't afford. The reason why is because we are using the same systems. Yeah. So we are exposed to all sorts of cyber threat, cyber security concerns, etc. So this law is an attempt, makes the I would say makes the right type of moves in the right direction in terms of safeguarding personal information. As you can see, social media is just off the charts. Every mobile phone has more than 40, 50 apps. Each particular app is processing personal information, your location, it might be processing your name, your contact details, etc. So with that amount of information, Facebook, social media like WhatsApp, etc., they process tons and tons, terabytes of information on an hourly basis. So with that type of power, we need a legislation whereby we can say you need to govern what you do. We have the right to take back, opt out. from you as a business or you as an organization using our information. So I could only see that the data protection law is going to get more stringent as the days go by.
Future amendments.
Future amendments, yeah.
And we can speculate, and there could be all sorts of reasons. But you talk about the more developed, industrialized nations, and then places like Cayman that are getting on board. Some would ask, well, why not take the standard that is there? You have the benchmark with the GDPR, and implement your law now at this level, as opposed to less than equal piece of legislation. The Ombudsman is just another step up. Yes, it's there for the protection, but it's another step. You have to know about it. You have to be able and willing to access that step. Whereas, if you're in some part of Europe, it's there. You can almost have a right.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the data protection law has taken on probably more than 89%, 90% of the general data protection regulation in Europe. I see very soon, certainly in my mind, that they're going to strengthen the general data protection regulation for a number of reasons. Things such as technology. Technology needs to be controlled. You need to ensure that you have the right safety protocols and making sure that technology is doing the sort of things that you expect it to do. Right now, under the general data protection regulation, they have not mandated what type of framework that they need to comply to, i.e. technology companies or people who manage technology. We've got things such as the ISO 27001, which is a security type of framework, and that helps support the general data protection regulation. And there are a couple others which have come out recently, like the BS 10012, I believe it, which is a personal management information type system that helps manage personal information. Now, the reason why I touch on technology is that under the data protection law, it's not mandatory that we comply to a specific framework. Neither is it under general data protection regulation. But I see going forward in the future, with the complexities of AI, with the complexities of machine learning, and the way we use technology today, that they are going to have to put in place a standard, a global standard, to say this is how we expect you to manage security. When it comes to security of personal information, this is how we expect you to manage security. So I think we have done we are going to be on the top of the pile in the Caribbean, on the top of the list in terms of a country that aligns itself with a global regulation. And I only think it's going to get more stringent going forward.
Would that be from the perspective of the expectations the global marketplace would have on us, or because of the demands within our own workplace to say, listen, our legislation needs to be compliant, needs to be on par, because we need the protection, from our data, our privacy needs to be able to have the same level of protection for our clients, for ourselves, our personal use, our business?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of both. Technology is disrupting industry, it's disrupting the way we do things. As we push the boundaries of technology, we're going to have to be able to demonstrate that we are still keeping this information safe, only accessible to people who should see it. That's one of the drivers, if you like. And I think social change is driving the boundaries as well. How we interact with technology, what our expectations of the person who is carrying our information, that's also driving the boundaries. So it's a mixture of both.
Okay. We're going to pause and take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion. I really appreciate the good company of Richard Carty joining us. You shared with me prior. Last week, there was a case before the courts in Luxembourg. Today, I think there was an ongoing case. Well, we're at 12:30 here now, so we'll probably finish up over there. Maybe give us some insight into the potential ramifications of those as we talk about data protection. We'll ask you other things too, relative to how it's going to affect us, what we can do, how do we protect ourselves, how do we ensure our clients, and the like. All right, the phone lines will be open if you want to call and share your thoughts. Certainly wouldn't mind having you share with us. So 949-8037 or 949-6990. And of course, toll free if you choose. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
There are plenty of reasons to be a Logic customer. There's lightning-fast internet connectivity. There's the great overall customer experience. And now, you can improve your Wi-Fi connectivity with Logic Boost Wi-Fi for free. With Boost, you can extend your freedom to stream, game, and download seamlessly anywhere in your home, like your patio or your underground lair if you have one. Sign up now for any Logic Bundle package and get free Boost Wi-Fi for a limited time. Visit logic.ky for details.
Some of us have perfect skin, and some of us have trouble with acne, age spots, and sun-damaged skin. Protect your skin, reduce the effects of sun damage, and restore a healthy, glowing look with dermatology treatment at Beyond Basics Medical Day Spa. General, cosmetic, and surgical dermatologist services by Dr. Geronimo Jones include treatment of acne, keloids, eczema, hair and nail disorders, and skin complications from chronic sun damage. Dermatology treatments are covered by most insurance providers. Book your consult with Dr. Geronimo Jones at Beyond Basics today. Call 945-2737.
The 8:12 a.m. Weather Report, Monday through Friday, is proudly sponsored by Super Stitch Sewing and Fabric Center. Super Stitch Sewing and Fabric Center is your one-stop shop for all of your sewing and alterations, fabrics, household items, craft items, jewelry, beads, and decorations. Call Super Stitch at 949-2833 or email customer care at superstitch.com.ky. Super Stitch, located 39 Pasadora Place, Smith Road, still offering the best prices in town.
Talk today. But I do have some questions.
Talk today. Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thanks for joining us. And as we have a chance to continue talking about data protection in our upcoming, data protection legislation that we're reminded is scheduled to come into effect at the end of September this year, Mr. Richard Cardy joins us. And as we were talking just prior to going to the break, this whole idea, maybe you can help us to get a perspective. Take us through a presentation of sorts so we understand where the legislation is. As we continue going down, we can maybe understand more things and see how it's going to affect us personally as well as professionally.
The legislation talks about specifically talks about consent. I would probably say that the data protection law is about consent, is about consent management. Mm-hmm. And consent management is basically making sure that you have the right level of consent for the particular service that you're offering. So me being an individual on the street, come in and you offer a service. I buy a bicycle from you, and you said to me that the bicycle has 12 months warranty, so you take my name and address details. The idea is that consent is specifically focused on the warranty period. Mm-hmm. It means that you could only use my details if it's in relationship to the warranty. You can't use it if you want to advertise or if you want to send additional services to me. It is only for the purposes of the warranty. And I think that's the major difference in terms of how businesses or how people who offer services to individuals are going to have to look at when they receive personal information. So consent management is probably one of the founding factors of what this legislation is about. Another key important point is accountability. The legislation specifically assigns accountability to the individuals or the businesses that collect personal information. They are referred to as data controllers in the law. Data controllers bears the responsibility and the accountability of ensuring that they comply with the data protection law. What does this mean? Well, in the past, if you were to buy a service from ABC Limited, I'm just using that as an example, and ABC Limited had third parties that were offering them services and they were a breach, in court you would have this toss-up between who's responsible, whether it's the third parties, and it could be a number of them, or whether it's the individual that provide the service. Well, under this legislation, it is the controller, the person who initially give you that service. And that's what this particular law makes very clear. Accountability is the data controller. So if the data controller is doing business or cooperating with other persons, i.e. third-party businesses, in order to perform its service, the data controller must make it crystal clear what that processor can do with the personal information. There must be clear guidelines. There must be contractual documentation in place to govern what the processor can and cannot do with that personal information. And this makes this particular law very focused on who's accountable.
If I could ask you then in respect to consent, you mentioned consent management.
Yeah.
And let's see if this plays into it. We're going to use something. Maybe I start by first, the credit card company gives you the credit card and they actually sign a user agreement and they're like, that's a traditional way. In today's world now, we're going online and you're updating a license agreement, you're going to be using something, the user agreement, you got to consent to sign that, to agree to it before they allow you to continue using.
Yes.
So when we talk of consent and you were to go to use a new service, whether it's a search engine or you want to access a website or you want to do something, and they say to you, well, for you to proceed, you must, at least click here, and it's probably, 50,000 pages long, finest a print ever. Who reads it? And if you don't agree to it, then too bad, too sad. You don't get to use it. You don't get to continue. Is this the same sort of consent from that perspective when you talk about consent management? And if not, how is that different when you want to move forward to be able to use and access those services?
That's a very good question because consent from a data protection law is very different from consent that we've previously seen in the marketplace. Consent under the data protection law has to be absolutely explicit. In other words, I wouldn't say a child, but someone who is a layman's person could sit down there and read and understand exactly what is being offered. Secondly, consent needs to be transparent, so there must not be any hidden agendas. If I'm signing a contract, you should have part of that contract that explains at high level, that explains exactly why I'm signing this contract, what is the services being ordered, and my rights. That is very important. So gone be the days where you could put the terms and conditions as make it as small as possible and use a lot of legal jargon. Those days are gone. Any website, any business that provides that as part of consent is not in compliance with the data protection law, because the data protection law explicitly states that consent needs to be very clear. And very clear means very much a layman person can read it and understand. And that would be obviously a case where the ombudsman will challenge any business where consent is being disguised under layers and layers of jargon or legal talk.
And now with that, as we look at it and understand that consent will be to the extent that, the website, and we'll come back to the use of AI and algorithms and how they sort of collect information. They want this for marketing purposes. They say analytics. They want to be able to figure out, well, to help you to improve our service, we want to know, when you access and how you use it and all these things. So we, feel that we're obligated to agree to it. But they can't take that information, your personal information, and share that without you knowing that they will. And if you don't consent to it, Now, if you withhold your consent, I want to use your service, but I don't want you selling my personal information, my IP address, what type of device I'm using, what websites I look at, whatever the thing is, your personal data. Can they say to you, well, if you don't give us this, we don't really want to deal with you?
Well, I suspect a business can make any statement put in place what their objectives are in terms of selling goods or providing a service to the person on the street. If you're providing a service to the person on the street, customer services is what makes the difference. I buy from people. I don't buy from a building. So any business will take it as their responsibility to say, okay, this is what the customer wants. The customer wants the information to be only used for the purpose intended. If I'm intending to use that information for anything else, I ought to know. I, as the data subject, needs to know what that business is using my information for. That's where the transparency come in. Now, if a company says, well, we don't want to be transparent because, we might, if we are transparent and we break the law, we get fined. Well, the data subject always, and this is the good thing, I suppose, about an industry where there is choice. The data subject could choose another business where there is transparency and where those services are being ordered. So, message to business users out there, your service is really not unique. I can buy a burger from whomever I choose. I can buy fish from whomever I choose. Right. And in the grand scheme of things, it would probably pay to listen to the customer as opposed to try to make something that you want for reasons that might not benefit the data subject.
So from that perspective, it comes back down to the consumer being informed.
Absolutely.
And be willing to exercise a certain level of choice, discretion, but again, from an informed perspective.
Correct.
All right. As we look at that, then, there are a couple of things of types of information that's being collected, how and if that can be used, there are limitations to it. Certainly in the Cayman context, in particular in the business environment, when we're looking at, are we secure in our information? How can it be accessed? Maybe you can take us through that. So I think at the break, Ms. Susan, as we come up on it, when we come back, I think people in the corporate sector maybe are more familiar. Maybe some of us who are not working there don't quite understand. Mr. Carter, you give us a perspective when we return. All right, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Congratulations, it's a boy.
During the greatest events of your life, whether or not you have the right health insurance coverage should be the last thing on your mind. That's why at Fidelity Health, we are committed to helping you get matched with the right plan to suit you and your family. We offer a range of plans to suit your budget, plus access to a network of quality care throughout the Caribbean and the USA. You can relax and enjoy life's greatest moments when you are covered with Fidelity Health. Call us today at 949-7822 for a free quote.
Always separate debris from household garbage after a hurricane hits. Debris includes roofing materials, downed tree branches, and metals. All items of debris must be placed in separate piles to the front of the property or at a side that is easily accessible to collection trucks. Debris must be placed in a location that will not cause obstruction to roadways or come in contact with electrical lines. For more post-hurricane waste management tips, visit the DEH website at www.deh.gov.ky.
The Breeze Fusion is back Saturday, November 2nd.
Bigger and better.
Now featuring a 5K walk run and a 10K run for half marathon trainers. Join the fun and help raise funds for the Central Scranton Park and the NCVO. Save the date or register now at CaymanActive.com or at Radio Cayman Studios. Registration is only $15 if registered by September 30th. And all early registrants enter to win a Cayman Airways voucher. The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run. Saturday, November 2nd.
A reminder to all SIXCA members, backpack distribution is on today. Members take your ID and collect your 2 backpacks filled with school supplies from the SIXCA office located upstairs the new number 1 shoe shop on Hospital Road from 1 until 7 p.m. Cayman Brac members, please go to the medical wing of the Aston Ruddy Center this Saturday, July 13th from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. to collect your backpacks. All members, please remember, if you're asking another person to collect your bags, please send a signed note with a copy of your identification.
Talk today. But I do have some question.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. As we talk about data protection, I'm honored to have as our guest today Mr. Richard Carty, Director of Risk Advisory Services over at BDO. When I say BDO Cayman, is that how we would say it? I remember the office was being set up. I felt like that was, just yesterday. It's been a while. But I really appreciate very, very, very much you coming in and helping us to at least understand that this legislation is set to come in at the end of September. It is very much like the international legislation and what it could mean for us in terms of our security or data protection. How do we make sure we have what we're supposed to have there? Not unlike our personal information over at the health services. Some of us probably, from time to time when we're talking to a physician, go through our personal file just to make sure things are in there. Errors can be made inadvertently. All right. Take us through, sir, as we continue to look at some of these things. Data protection.
Yes. One of the key areas, before we went to the break, we talked a little, the question was asked around security. Mm-hmm. The data protection law doesn't stipulate what security is. They say appropriate technical measures. That's quite open to interpretation. But however, if we were to take a leaf out of the GDPR book that uses exactly the same language, we have to be able to demonstrate, one, that we have appropriate security in place. We have the right level of security. So, for example, if you intend to keep personal information safe and you got your details on a server, you would expect that server is patched regularly. The right firmware is on that. You would expect that only authorized individuals who have access to that information, only those individuals have access. You would expect if that information is online, for example, that you would have a firewall in place. But if you've got a firewall but it doesn't have the latest firmware, the firewall is ineffective. So this idea of appropriate technical measures means that you need to be able to demonstrate to the ombudsman, the supervisory authority here, that you have made every effort to safeguard the keeping of personal information, i.e. using technology. And obviously today modern technology comes with a lot of built-in security. So if you were using cloud services such as Microsoft, for example, they comply with GDPR. They obviously have a number of secure mechanisms such as dual authentication. So you have to authenticate by not only passwords and usernames, but by some external device, and they have a number of other security measures which are built in as part of their called privacy by design and by default. So it is important that businesses understand that the right level of security needs to be in place, and more importantly, in the event that there's a breach, you would have to demonstrate to the ombudsman that you put those security measures in place. So you have to keep records. You have to keep some form of audit trail, traceability of what you do, what you say that you do, policies and procedures to demonstrate that you have the right level of security and that you maintain that level of security up to the point of a breach. And that's critical important. And as most of our learners, most of our IT listeners will know, ISO 27001 is a recognized global security principle or security framework. And this is probably something a number of businesses will use to model their security platform off in order to keep their information safe.
Now, as we listen to you, we talk about, you referenced the ombudsman, and we would initially be familiar with that office through the FOI legislation. Some see it as a companion legislation. In some jurisdictions, they go hand in hand, data protection with FOI. In our case, why not a separate entity to serve as the adjudicator, the arbiter in this instance, as opposed to the office of the ombudsman, for instance?
That's an interesting question. I suppose if I was looking at the GDPR model, they have independent organization called the ICO. ICO, they are part of government, of course, but they are mandated to ensure that that the UK complies with the law. They have certain rights here. Certain rights in the UK to enforce the GDPR up to the point of fines. The ombudsman here, I'm not technically familiar with their overall role within the country, but any oversight sort of group or any oversight sort of persons to look at this legislation must be independent. They can't be conflicting their roles.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking isn't, not to the office itself or to the person, just looking at what the European model is in a sense, and wondering. And I ask that in this perspective when we look at the security of information and the concerns. Maybe in initial days, maybe it's been settled or maybe it's just been accepted. Government, intelligence agencies, policing, and the like. How accessible will this information be to them? Yes, it's protected, from intrusion by others, but for terrorist financing, for law enforcement, for whatever it is, the government, quote unquote, needs to be able to access this. How do we balance the protection with the provision of information to ensure that the society is safe and as
Yeah, I mean that's a very good question. Very direct. The legislation has a number of exceptions in place for security agencies, the police, for government and other security firms that act in the interests of Cayman government, so councils, etc. So they have a number of exemptions. They don't have to comply with the entire law. There's certain things that they have to do. In other words, if they've got information, they have to demonstrate they keep the information safe, but they don't have to request consent. In the case of terrorism, they wouldn't have to request consent from the individual. They would process the information as they see fit in the interest of national security. Health organizations, government organizations, security organizations, they're exempt from this law to a number of degrees.
Yeah. And I appreciate appreciate you allowing us just to chat generally, because I think as we start to look at the balance of national security and the safety of a society versus if you're in a corporate sector, but even the individual, how is your privacy being respected and protected and the like. I think in the Cayman context, there may be two bits of legislation. I'll try to remember the name, but you could probably tell me. One allows, presumably, the government to, I think through the office of the governor, secure a wiretap, for instance, without it being in oversight of the courts.
Correct.
Is that an affront to this legislation in a sense? Is that aiding the national security interests? Get away.
Well, the data protection law makes it clear that the governor has overriding authority to intercept a particular concern and rule against whatever is being what is being said, particularly if it's in the interest of national security.
Interesting word.
And that makes sense. We have to keep our residents safe. We have to keep our people safe. And obviously, you don't want the bureaucracy of the law interfering.
That pesky thing,
interfering with them, trying to do with, security agencies, the police doing their jobs, and the governor, of course. So it makes sense. And the similar sort of thing applies with the General Data Protection Regulation. The government has the right to carry out what they deem fit in the area of national security and certainly in the area of terrorism or terrorist threat. So the government of Cayman has followed suit, and it makes sense.
All right. And this is where I think as a public we look at our Constitution with the provision of the National Security Council, for instance, when we're looking at different things. Now, companion legislation or another piece that we ask about, I believe it's ability again of the government, of the policing authority to be able to gain information that they say it's going to be admissible in court, but we just need it for intelligence gathering. We just need to be able to do this. Some jurisdictions say, "But wait a minute, that's extrajudicial. How can you just need to go through the courts?" Here we're saying, "No, we're monitoring things. We want to know what's going on, but we won't use this. And we can't use this because it's not admissible." But you can't unknow. You can't unring the bell. How does that then come in? Would that fall under the exemptions and not run counter to our legislation, including potentially if we want power with the international GDPR?
Well, the in whatever government does, whatever security agencies does, they have to still respect the rights of the individual.
Right.
That has to be still respected. We are not creating a scenario where we have a law in place, but then we have agencies or governments that could circumvent that law and do whatever they deem fit. That's not the case. Certainly not the case in how I read the data protection law. The agencies, security agencies, as well as the government, still have to act in accordance with the law where it comes to criminal activity, but they also have to act in accordance with the legislation where it relates to the data protection law. They are things that they might need to administrate in order to safeguard their interests when it comes to criminal activity. So they might not share information, willingly with the data subject because of, national security or safeguarding interests of the country. But there are things that the data subject should be aware of because the data subject has rights. And I think that's important. Under the General Data Protection Law, the same sort of principle applies. Data subject now has rights. These needs to be respected, needs to be observed, needs to be honored. In any civilized society, Cayman is following along the same lines, and they're using the same sentiments to interpret the law. Because it's not only the written law; it's the spirit of the law that we have to take in consideration. So we will not. I'm speaking we, but I'm saying that Cayman as a country would not say, here is the law, but, these are the things that we can do irrespective of what the law is. And I don't think that. I think the spirit of the law is that the data subject has rights, and we will follow that. But we also have to ensure that we maintain the right level of balance between how we investigate criminal activity, how we investigate things like terrorism, and comply with that as well.
All right. Well, after our news break, then, if you would be so kind to continue with us and share more about the legislation. We talk about, not just the letter of the law, but the intent, the spirit, as it were, and looking at maybe some of the international cases, perhaps some of the implications and impact for us, locally, as we have a global clientele. Well, the excellent company of Mr. Richard Carty, Director of Risk Advisory Services over at BDO. Hey, listen, it's a pleasure to learn and to listen to you. When we come back, we'll get more information. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman. Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
With your latest headlines, I'm April Cummings. The Department of Environment expresses concern about risks to Cayman's national bird. They say parrots are at risk from storms and hurricanes, as well as their critical habitat being cleared and poaching. DOE says parrots are now concentrated in smaller areas on both Cayman Brac and Grand Cayman, and they are seeing a lower number of breeding parrot pairs on both islands. In international headlines, Britain's main Labour Party said today that the country's soon-to-be chosen new leader should hold a second referendum on whether to leave the EU or remain in the bloc. This as the two contenders for the job prepared to face a grilling in a TV debate over their plans to break Britain's Brexit gridlock. In a significant shift, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn said the party would campaign to stay in the EU if a referendum were called by whoever succeeds Prime Minister Theresa May. She announced her resignation last month after failing to get Parliament to back her divorce deal with the EU. The battle between rival militias for the Libyan capital has killed more than 1,000 people since it began in April. That, according to the United Nations today, a grim milestone in a stalemated conflict that is partially fueled by regional powers. Forces loyal to Khalifa Hifter, a veteran army officer, opened an offensive on Tripoli in early April, advancing on the city's southern outskirts and clashing with an array of militias loosely affiliated with the UN-recognized government. Ross Perot has died, the colorful, self-made Texas billionaire who rose from a childhood of Depression-era poverty and twice ran for president in the U.S. as a third-party candidate. He was 89. Those are your headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. I'm April Cummings.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. In the studio, Mr. Richard Carter joins us. And, the notion of data protection, for some, they're like, they're talking, what is that? But when it affects you, when, for argument's sake, your identity theft, for instance, all of a sudden now you're getting charges on your credit card, or you going maybe through immigration in some other jurisdiction, and they're stopping you and they go, that's interesting. This last photo of you showed you as a woman. Obviously, you're as muscular as Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, that's probably a far stretch, but those things can happen. They do happen, and when the people look alike or same name. So we're cognizant of that, but also are we as much consciously aware of our data in our files? No longer, as you shared, locked away in a file cabinet. Now they're online in a cloud somewhere. I see planes flying around it to avoid it. No, it's not those kind of clouds. Help us to, as you continue to be able to understand how important it is to protect it and what we need to do to make sure we're compliant with the local legislation that's going to come into effect end of September, but also to ensure our clients feel that I can do business with them because they're going to respect their privacy and it's going to be secure as best as possible.
Absolutely, and I like the story you mentioned about someone being in the airport and having a different photo on their passport to the person that is standing in front of immigration, and that's under the data protection law. So it's a fundamental rule. In other words, data controllers must ensure that they give access to data subjects so they can update the information. Information must be accurate. It must be correct. Too often, data controllers got information online, and their data subjects are trying to correct that information and having a lot of difficulty in making sure that information is correct. Now, data controllers must ensure that the records they keep is correct. So somebody needs to do some analytical reviews and some monitoring systems to ensure that that information is correct. And this is going to be very important because what the law stipulates or what the law enforces is cross-border transfers. So cross-border transfers is when you transfer data subjects information from Cayman to other countries. So let's assume that we're transferring it to Europe. We know that Europe has GDPR in place, so the Caymanian law recognizes that this is a good jurisdiction and there shouldn't be any issues with transferring information to those territories. However, if you were to transfer the same information to another territory, you would have to ensure that that territory have the right level of security in place, the right level of governance in place in order to safeguard that information whilst it's in their care. And this is going to be the next things that data controllers need to do. You can't just send an email and just hope for the best. You have to make sure if you're corresponding with somebody in Timbuktu, that particular correspondee has the right level of security and the right level of protocol in place to safeguard that information. So this is going to really try and challenge data controllers here in Cayman.
As I listened to you, I was just thinking of maybe it happens less now, or maybe it's even more. Not sure. It's been so long I've not been in the sector. But the back office work, the outsourcing, the different things that we would call. And specifically, we know we used to see it in architecture, we saw it in accounting. But even here in financial services, the office is maybe headquartered here or affiliated here, but is using some other jurisdiction. And that information is there. Could another entity come in, ask information from that jurisdiction, and indirectly get information on the Cayman jurisdiction? How are we ensuring that cross-data protection is there so the client is secure? Not because the client has anything nefarious activities they want to hide, but just because they're doing business in a jurisdiction that they believe, you know what, I don't need my information, accessible to on all these prying eyes, as it were. Would that not now impose significant costs to organizations, to even a country, if it was such, to make sure that the data is protected?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't probably use the term significant cost, but I certainly would use there's going to be an increased cost to because of this legislation to third-party companies. If I was a company in Cayman and I outsourced to a company in the U.S., that company in the U.S. has going to have to demonstrate that they comply with the data protection law, and they're going to have to know it. More importantly, me as the data controller, using their services, I'm going to have it written within my contract exactly what they need to do in order whilst they're processing information of Caymanian subjects. So that's going to probably increase the cost of that contract, because the data processor is going to say, well, there's going to be a number of things that I need to do in order to meet the demands of your legislation, and therefore the cost of my services to you might go up. And we've seen that in GDPR without a doubt. The amount of, and anyone in the financial services, for example, when FATCA came in, FATCA was another regulation where we have to make sure that we report financial services to the IRS, and companies, all financial institutions had to put in place the right level of infrastructure in order to report to government, and then government report to the IRS. That was a cost. It was a huge cost to businesses. I know because I was part of the rollout here in the Caribbean of the FATCA services, and it was a huge cost to the point that some businesses says, no, we don't want U.S. citizens on our books because of the cost of reporting. The data protection regulation will cost in terms of how we demonstrate we are keeping that information safe. So we can't just take it for granted, for example, that we have a contract in place and the third parties are doing what we think they're doing. We're going to have to retain evidence that the third parties are doing what they say they're supposed to be doing in contracts. What that means is they're going to have some form of independent assessment of what they're doing to comply with the law. And that's going to push costs up. So, yeah, there will be a cost increase.
Now, with that, as we understand, the onus is on the data controller.
Yes.
And they're liable to rest. But that data controller has a third-party contract with a data processor. In the absence of any malicious, negligent, any other sort of act where the data controller, in dealing with the data processor, can say, listen, this was just an unfortunate slip, information got out inadvertently.
Yes.
Could that then cause, in some instances, in the most perhaps careful of gestures, that the data processor could allow some information to go out? Like I said, just unfortunately, the onus and liability rests with the data controller, but information gets out in the hands of a third party, intelligence, competitor, or otherwise, and be utilized in such a way because it's out there. You can't unsee it. And the liability then remains with the data controller, but because of the actions of the data processor, just an inadvertent slip.
Yeah, and absolutely. And when the ombudsman performs their investigations, they would find that the data controller did all that was necessary to comply with the law. However, the data processor was the one that breached his or her contract. And therefore, the fines would be levied accordingly. In addition to that, the data subject also have a judiciary process that they can go through to seek compensation in the case of negligence.
Okay. Mr. Carter, if we could ask, and both from the perspective of the personal sort of interaction as well as the corporate, we recognize in the corporate realm more and more measures are being employed to ensure that the data is securely communicated, even email servers as best as possible. We've seen it, trusted and verified and the like. But the use of emails generally, the use of social media platforms, you reference WhatsApp. Could we ask a couple of things? One, whether it's advisable to use them or not, and if you use them, because some of us interact with their clients and we'll say, okay, John, I'm coming to meet you 10 a.m. in Zurich. Instead of an email, we may be on that sort of basis. Would that be advisable to do? And if we do, how secure is that? Secondly, in the essence of accessibility from third parties, again, policing authorities and the like, as well as the admissibility of that. Could we talk about that, how that would affect us? Because we communicate constantly with our clients, with each other, all across many platforms.
Yeah, it would be my recommendation, and this is what I'm advising my clients to do, a data privacy impact assessment for first of all. That would then give them an understanding to begin to map out where data is being shared and to whom data is being shared. So they would know, they would be able to create a storyboard in terms of data coming into the organization and flowing to its end state. So that would be advisable. What's going to come out of that DPIA, Data Privacy Impact Assessment, is an understanding of the risks. Once you begin to understand the level of risks that you have, so you might categorize, for example, the use of social media within your organization as high risk, because based on your impact assessment, you might not be able to quantify the level of security and at least mitigate any of the particular risk that you're exposed to, and that could cause a problem to the organization. So you might say, as a business, restrict employees from, or you might decide to use total independent type connection to the World Wide Web, where employees can then use their social media, and that has nothing to do with your business, which is what a lot of companies have done. The sharing of other personal information, such as Yahoo Mail, Outlook, Gmail, on business servers. Again, companies might take the view that they would restrict employees from being able to access these outlets. But that's a decision for the business itself. Once the impact assessment is being done, and they understand the level of risk, then they can determine what tools pose the greatest risk, and therefore make the appropriate decisions in how they're going to safeguard information.
Now, as we go to the break, we recognize that either because of our lifestyle, maybe because of the sort of working environment we're traveling, we're using portable devices, smartphones, tablets, and the like.
Yes.
We're traveling. The use of them, as well as how we use them to access remotely our platform and our servers. Any potential considerations, both from the security aspect as well as being compliant with legislation, that we make sure those devices are secure?
Yeah, and and again, companies are going to have to really look at this area very seriously. Mobile device communication, anything which then goes outside the firewall of the business, and now is accessible to the World Wide Web. Companies are going to have to do their own impact assessment to understand what are their vulnerabilities, because like you said, most people have their personal mobile phones, and then they have business emails coming to their personal mobile phones. But there's no VPN on that phone. There's no encryption, and therefore that particular device, once it's connected to the World Wide Web, is accessible to be breached. And that would be some of the things that companies need to take on board. Some companies have mobile devices, and the mobile device itself is not secure. And again, companies are going to need to take on board, if we have mobile devices, if we have laptops or desktops or iPads or anything which is connected to the internet, how do we keep it safe? More importantly, how do we ensure that if there is a particular threat, that we can identify that threat quite easily? Because some mobile devices, they don't even know that they've been breached. They bring them into the organization, connect it to the main server, and there you go. You got malware on the main server. It's risky, my expert opinion to companies is that they need to do the impact assessment, understand the risks, and certainly be able to identify what processes they need to place to mitigate those risks.
Certainly, as you shared that, I'm thinking two things. Some of us may, even if it may be a practice, we may have a need to check our personal email from the work. Could that bring in malware? We have these little gadgets that we wear on our wrists and different parts of our bodies to make sure we're healthy. We're checking these things. Is that synced into our computers? And as a result, could information come in and go out through those little things that we probably didn't think about before?
Okay.
All right, but when we come back, certainly appreciate some of your closing thoughts, but equally maybe some of the legislation. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
The management of Health Service Station Limited would like to take this opportunity to notify their customers that they will be closing from Monday, July 1st through Tuesday, July 9th for maintenance and upgrade to their fuel dispensers. They will be reopening for business on Wednesday, July 10th at 6 a.m. with regular scheduled hours, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. They apologize for this inconvenience and appreciate your understanding in this matter.
Some of us have perfect skin, and some of us have trouble with acne, age spots, and sun-damaged skin. Protect your skin, reduce the effects of sun damage, and restore a healthy, glowing look with dermatology treatment at Beyond Basics Medical Day Spa. General, cosmetic, and surgical dermatologist services by Dr. Geronimo Jones include treatment of acne, keloids, eczema, hair and nail disorders, and skin complications from chronic sun damage. Dermatology treatments are covered by most insurance providers. Book your consult with Dr. Geronimo Jones at Beyond Basics today. Call 945-2737.
When you need stability, think Business of the Year.
Considering a new career opportunity, think Best Place to Work.
When dependability matters, think Outstanding Workforce.
In need of a reliable financial partner, think Bank of the Year.
When you seek excellence, think Cayman National.
No matter how many accomplishments we achieve, we always set the bar higher. That's why we are the most awarded bank in Cayman, and we are proud to be your
2018 Bank of the Year.
What do we love more than summertime? Extra flights between Cayman and Jamaica with Cayman Airways, of course. Cayman Airways has added extra flights weekly for travel between Grand Cayman and Kingston this July and August. Visit family and friends in Jamaica or send for them to visit you in Cayman. But hurry, these extra seats will sell out fast, so book yours today. Remember now, check-in time is 2 hours before departure. Call Cayman Airways reservations on 949-2311. Contact a travel agent or book online at CaymanAirways.com.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. And it's a pleasure to have in the studio the good company of Mr. Richard Carty, Director at BDO for Risk Advisory Services. And as I sort of read that risk advisory, you look at how job descriptions have changed and the expectations of jobs, a person may be a qualified lawyer or accountant or even an economist. I mean, they can do other things. And you're working in the financial sector, but you're no longer sitting by a computer, doing spreadsheets or calculating NAVs. You're worrying about a lot of these other things. And data protection is perhaps one of those things that we have maybe taken for granted, just generally speaking. When we're shopping and we're on vacation, we're not paying attention of, when we give the credit card, she's taking an awful long time to bring it back. Get back home and it's, okay, I see, I was in Thailand, I was in the UK, all these different things. Now we're more conscious of it, so too are the businesses. But generally speaking, globally, cases before courts, evolving sort of practices within our own jurisdiction. In the closing moments, what can you share with us about some of those things that we should be aware of?
Well, one of the things that's going to keep us all awake at night, certainly the CFO, the CEO, is the fines that are going to be levied against non-compliance. As you can see in the media, in the news recently, BA has been the ICO in the UK has just served an NOI, which is a notice of intent to the court to levy a hefty fine against BA for the loss of I think it's 500,000 records, which is a lot of records. This could be through negligence. We don't know the full details of it, and obviously what is going to happen with this case. But certainly looking at the roadmap for GDPR and the number of companies that's been fined since GDPR went live, it just makes a certain impression on most businesses globally that this thing called data privacy is here to stay, and we need to pay attention. Likewise, here in Cayman, the fines are $100,000 or 5 years in prison, or both. In addition to that, the data subject has the right to seek compensation. So this is serious. If we are taking this lightly, that this won't happen to me, just look at what is happening to a number of businesses because of GDPR non-compliance. It's going to happen here. And I believe that the Ombudsman is taking this very seriously, and that if companies with intent flunk the law, that they are going to, I suppose, suffer the wrath of the supervisor authority. I believe that the Ombudsman here is a proportionate regulator. In other words, the fines are going to be levied proportional to the breach. And you don't have to think, am I going to get 100,000 fine if I'm a two-man business and I've just I'm in breach of the law. So this is my key message is this is very important. The fines are heavy, and the fines are going to, in some cases, be the driver for most businesses to take action. Unfortunately, this should be an opportunity for businesses to reflect on both their integrity, their transparency, providing a better value to clients. And I think these are supposed to be the drivers, but undoubtedly fines tend to take that, do it.
Well, possibly maybe two last things I may ask.
Yes.
Looking at was it the large hotelier in the U.S. late last year or this year that finally disclosed a huge breach. We saw a retailer a few years ago where a lot of credit card information specifically. This is just in the U.S. We know it's globally as well. From that perspective, then, we as the client, the consumer, are there things that we can do to help to make sure, questions we can ask, perhaps when we're looking at the agreements that have been being required in order to give our consent, what can we do to protect it? We know from the perspective of our personal identity, there are things we can. We see but what else can we do to help to make sure that we're protecting our privacy?
Yeah, very good question. I always think that awareness is the trump card. The more you become aware of something, the more questions that you would ask, the more you are able to defend a position where you believe that your freedom of speech or your rights are being violated. So ask questions, ask as many questions as you can. Be able to articulate to data controllers, no, this is my right. I have seven of them under this law, and you have to be able to demonstrate to me that you're borrowing you're borrowing my information. Demonstrate to me that you're keeping that and only using it for the purpose intended. Controllers are going to basically say, step back and say, okay, the game has changed, and they are demanding this. It's just like WhatsApp. There were concerns about WhatsApp and the information that was being shared because people used to take pictures of credit cards and share it on WhatsApp. WhatsApp was forced to encrypt all communications. And that's because customers were very concerned about the information that was shared and it was not encrypted.
Right. So with that, though, and as you shared, maybe speaking to more of us who either aren't as savvy with some of the information and don't see this as a big thing. We take a picture of a credit card, just send it to someone. We take pictures of different things.
Correct.
We're not conscious aware of the geotagging and the like. But with the greatest respect, our younger people, those under 20, seem to share everything all the time. They don't seem to be as concerned with their privacy as maybe their parents or grandparents. Maybe their grandparents are a bit too skeptical. But one part of our society is just aloof, seemingly, when it comes to data protection and information, personal information. They give it up. Is that going to necessitate some sort of cultural shift in terms of how we educate our people and not only tell them, well, be wary of dark places and strangers, be wary of accepting this and that, to also don't post this, don't do that, be wary of that. How do we balance that?
Yeah, there is a requirement to be aware of what's out there and the challenges, but also what I've seen certainly from the technologies world, that now manufacturers are coming under pressure to build in protection. So they need to ensure that they are providing the right level of protection in their software and their tools. So in order to minimize the ability for their tool to be breached. So what a lot of manufacturers are doing now is understanding that privacy by design and by default is required because the law is demanding it. So it is gone be the days where a manufacturer would then provide a service and not think, hang on a second, how do I safeguard? So the manufacturer's role in terms of the tools and the resources that they're putting out to the market has to play a very critical role. But in addition to that, people who use the technology, data subjects, needs to be aware and certainly need to act appropriately and act responsibly at the same time.
Well, I'm hopeful perhaps we'll have a panel discussion going forward, certainly as legislation comes into effect. Who knows, it may be postponed, I don't know. We'll see where it's at. It's going to affect us.
Yes.
Maybe we can be aware of it. I could be wrong, but I see privacy as being the new measure of wealth in the future.
Yes.
Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see if that prediction comes true. Any closing thoughts, Mr. Carty? I certainly appreciate you spending some time with us.
No problem at all. Thank you for this opportunity for me to come and share some of my thoughts with you around the data protection law. For those who are listening, don't be scared about this. I think this is a step in the right direction. I think it's done for the right reasons. And I think certainly you and I, as individual data subjects, can walk away knowing that we are now taking control back of our data. It's our data, and our companies have to demonstrate how they keep our data safe.
Hey, just like you keep your person safe, your data should be as well. Very much appreciate it. Looking forward to maybe having you back on with some others in the future as well.
Thank you.
All right. To our listeners, you have a chance to have two physicians from the HSA come and share with us in a bit. Always excited to be able to promote the health sector and especially our continued partnership with the Health Services Authority. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
If your business is over here, but your customers are over here, adding more yellow to your business will bring you both right here. With everyone searching yellows, print, online, and mobile app, getting your business noticed is easier than ever. Book your consultation today at findyellow.com.
The Cayman Islands Seafarers Association wishes to inform all members that there will be a general meeting on Tuesday, 16th July at 7:30 p.m. in the Seafarers Hall, 11 Victory Avenue, Prospect. There will be 3 buses from West Bay Town Hall, which leaves at 6 p.m. The Barnes bus route in Georgetown leaves the public library parking area at 6:45 p.m., stopping at the Cayman Compass Building and the Airport Fosters. The bus marked Bobo is $1 public transport and is blue in color. Pickups are from British Caymanian, Uncle Bill's, Walkers Road, Shedden Road, and Crew Road. The bus from East End. Pickups are at the school parking lot, the gas station, and the Wreck of the 10 Sails, starting at 5:45. North side pickups are at Chisholm Store and the soccer field, starting at 6:15. The Boddentown pickups is at Lorna's gas station at 6:45, and the Savannah pickups is at the gas station at 7 p.m.
RC Fusion featuring Billboard pop hit songs and more from the 70s to the 90s.
RC Fusion.
Weekdays from 10 a.m. till 12. RC Fusion.
Brought to you by Tasty Patties, baked fresh every 30 minutes. Available at Tortuga locations, the Patty Express Industrial Park, and Bake It and Take It on Eastern Avenue. Get tasty now.
Hi, this is Bob Kingsley, and this weekend,
the Bob Kingsley Top 40 Countdown is brought to you by Merengue Town. Liven up your weekends and let loose with the grooves of Merengue Town. It's time. Feel the rhythm. Time to feel the vibes. It's time for Merengue Town.
And, of course, the rest of the 40 hottest hit makers on the radio this weekend, right here on the Country Top 40.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. And our schedule hopefully will be provided an opportunity for 2 of our physicians from the Health Services Authority to join us. Now, as you quite evidently would recognize, they are physicians. Their schedules, even though they may intend to, they have clinics, they have patients, they have things that happen, and sometimes they just aren't able to join when they want. So we're always grateful that they are available when they can. But in the meantime, what was it that Miss Susan reminds me that Miss Norma says? The show must go on. It's live radio. Slight delay, but nonetheless, it's as live as it comes. So, while we wait, while we provide opportunity for you to call and share your thoughts, let's have some open line. 949-6990 or 949-8037 or toll free 1-800-534-8255. Or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. Lots of numbers, I know. Some of you don't like all those numbers, not even the ones that play on. What days they play, Miss Susan? She says, behave, you get in trouble, and that's against the law. Like most laws around here these days, boy. We're just making changes to get rid of times. Anyway, I had a laugh. I'll share with you why I say that all the time. There was a fellow who once said, when we look at the whole issue of illegal, is it gaming, Miss Susan? Is that what I call it? Illegal numbers, the gambling, the illegal thing that people buy numbers. Illegal lottery. Thank you, Miss Susan. Yes, she whispers in my ear. Sometimes she chastises me. Most times. I don't know much about it. I joke and jest, so I had to ask. And it plays. I used to think it only played once a week, but apparently it plays every day, all day long, and they're all over the place. So I was talking to a fellow, and he said, a government, whether in referring to an elected Cayman government, could do the society a great favor. There was, as he shared with me, a case before the court, and then there were a few other cases some years ago where the magistrate, he referenced one of the later magistrates that said that in one instance, and if the courts or anyone listening in the legal profession, say I'm repeating this incorrectly, it's not an offense, but let us know so that we have it correctly. From what we understand from what he shared, there were a number of instances, but two in particular where the magistrate said the fine for this thing is so small, because the law was, at that time, it was in pence and I think tuppence, and it was like a couple of cents, that the magistrate said this is a waste of time and resources. It doesn't make sense. In another instance, presumably, there was a lady before the court being charged with buying or selling numbers or something. I think it was buying numbers, he said. And presumably, the magistrate shared that back in the home country, it was legal to do so. And the person didn't know that it was not legal here. And so the magistrate was able to somehow say, well, we're not going to proceed with this in that way. Now, I remember the conversation and someone asking, well, isn't it accepted that ignorance of the law is no defense? And some other things transpired that I don't recall. But I recall the fellow sharing repeatedly that if we look at some things that are not enforced and some things that if we were to make adjustments, they could be beneficial to the country. His perspective, and I ask this only because I've had a conversation again recently with someone else with the intent to ask you what you think. If, as he shared, we were to amend the law, create a national lottery, would we get rid of the illegal aspect of it, reduce the crime and the like, and make it safer? And B, could we somehow use, allegedly, there are tens of millions, maybe even hundreds of millions, I honestly do not know. There was a study that I don't think many of us agree necessarily captured the accuracy of how much money leaves the economy on a yearly basis as a result of illegal gaming or what the value is. But he shared that if that money is able to be somehow captured officially in the system, just like you see lotteries across different states in the US or different countries, whether it's Canada or the UK or other countries in Europe, if that money then is able to be captured by the country, put into education or healthcare or other social programs or other would that be beneficial? Now, there are some of us who don't buy lotteries, don't buy the illegal numbers, not just because they're illegal, but just because we don't see the probability of a game of chance being worthwhile to spend $1 or $5 or whatever the sum is. But then there are those of us who say, what, on a wing and a prayer, we're going to buy it and we might win, but if you don't buy, you can't win. Are those discussions that need to be had on a national level to see whether it's worthwhile pursuing? Now, others would share, well, if you start having lotteries and the like, is that opening the door to other forms of gambling, casinos, horse racing, or whatever else there is? And some of you will link that with organized crime or other criminal behavior. Again, questions that honestly I don't know that I'm equipped to answer, but I can share that many of you have asked that could we bring this up on air. We have asked a number of people, former politicians, some members of the legal profession, some within the law enforcement sector, would you be willing to be guests? Some have said yes, but not just yet. Some have had a bit of reservation for obvious reasons. We've also asked private citizens. Now, we're grateful for the feedback, but it still seems to be a subject that is somewhat taboo in our society, and therefore I joke about it. Now, I couldn't tell you who buy and who sell, how much it costs, when it plays, and what the numbers are, but I know what it makes a lot of people uncomfortable, and it gets a lot of laughter from some. So there it goes. Let's go to the phones, Miss Susan. Good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How you doing?
Not too bad, sir. How are you today, my friend?
I'm pleasant and blessed.
Amen to that, brother. Amen.
You're talking about the the illegal lottery.
Yes, sir.
And you know, I've always been a proponent that that one form of gambling should not be looked at in a different way than the other one. Okay, I say that to say this.
Right.
You can get social clubs, go there, and they sell tickets to win a car. Well, anything that you buying that is a chance is gambling.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that you're doing that you stand to gain something from by virtue of winning, it is a gamble.
Mm-hmm.
So that form of gambling should not be any different than the man going and buying numbers. That should be absolutely no different. And then the thing about it, Dwayne,
Mm-hmm.
Is that church or that entity that is selling the lottery tickets to win that car,
Mm-hmm.
the chances are one person, well, there's only going to be one winning ticket, yeah?
Right.
It's only going to be one winning ticket because there's no duplicity in it. So that is all fine. That's all good and well. So one person out of a population of 60,000 can win that one vehicle. But if 40,000 of us walks down to some place to sell the number and buy that number, and that number plays, 40,000 just won.
Right. Right.
So my submission is that the gambling of selling a car, of raising money for a social club or entity by virtue of selling tickets for that chance should not be looked upon any different than that of the man going and buying lottery tickets. I can't differentiate from it. It is the same. I mean, it is just like you saying, okay, let's take it a little bit more in layman terms. Then it is the same as saying, well, you know, oh boy, it's okay for the man to smoke a little joint, but it's illegal for him to possess the ganja. So,
okay.
You know, it's okay for him. It is okay for him to smoke the ganja, but it's illegal for him to have it in his possession. How do you get to that?
Yeah, is that the problem then with so many things? And I don't wish to, hopefully, the police or the authorities to make light of it or to offend the sensibilities of anybody else. But this issue with the gambling, I'm probably the most ill-equipped to talk about it because I'm not trying to sound like a saint. I really don't know much about it, right? But I can tell you the amount of people who speak to me about it, from the potential that if it's legal, there'll probably be less crime. From the potential that if it's in the economy, then there's more money going into the economy. Now, there are those who share that, okay, it could create other adverse consequences. But to your point, it's happening in here, but we're not talking about it. We're not seemingly doing anything to address it, you know?
You see, we boast of surpluses and stuff like that. Yet
Mm-hmm.
we see poor people can't live.
Mm-hmm.
Why not regularize this? Bring regulations and allow. Okay, you want to sell numbers? That's fine. You're gonna pay. You're gonna pay X amount from your take each day,
mm-hmm.
right? And if we find you selling numbers illegally, there's a fine of $100,000 and in jail for 5 years or whatever.
Right. But if I can ask you, I mean, I hear your point. It sounds on the face that it makes good sense. But like, presumably, with the sale of alcohol, and I'm only thinking of some of the instances that we see where people have been charged for selling alcohol, you know, without a license. Do you think if we license people to sell lottery tickets, let's use that word, like we see, and I can just use the US for instance, in Florida, you go to gas stations and you see these people are vendors. If we license people to sell, they pay a fee, whatever the criteria is. Do you think that you would still get people selling it illegally, or the so-called black market?
I don't think so, because the person would want, well, the person should be wanting to be
Mm-hmm.
for the legal and to know that they stand to make, you know, a lot of money, I would have thought that any illegal trade of it would not exist, you know. But I mean, not to tell you that it wouldn't. I mean, you got some people that just love to break the law. So I mean, I can't put hand on heart for that. But
exactly.
As far as I'm concerned, the government could be making a substantial amount of money at the stand. It could be making hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, you know, there's a lot of money circulating out there in that black market, so to speak, that the government can tap into. Let's forget about oh well, you know, it's gonna open. You want to open the door to what you open the door to. So if you say that it's okay to buy lottery tickets, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have them to create a casino atmosphere. There's nothing like that needs to happen.
Yeah.
No one is suggesting that. But I think that I remember years ago, I don't know whatever did happen, but I think Mr. Gilbert McLean actually started some sort of
there was a study.
There was some study that I think Mr. Gilbert McLean was involved in. If memory serves me right.
Yeah, there was some study.
I don't know how far that got, but you know, obviously when you see an intelligent man like him looking into it, it's telling you that there's something there that could actually benefit the country as a whole, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you. It's I can share with you there are a lot of people who believe, as I said, and the reason why I've mentioned that if we do something about it, the crime could be significantly curtailed, because presumably it seems there's a lot of crime around the whole issue of sale, as opposed to years ago, and then the money could go into the economy. But again, maybe not. I don't know. Any final thoughts you want to share with us on that, sir?
No, that'll be all today. Take care, Dwayne.
Thank you, man, and thanks for weighing in. You not only bring a reasoned debate, but you bring a sense of credibility, and maybe it cause other people to likewise be encouraged to share their thoughts, whether they're in favor, whether they're opposed, maybe they're not quite sure. Not unlike the whole issue with the port referendum. Hey, thanks very much, my friend.
Yeah, man, thank you.
All right, let's pause and take a break. When we come back, we have some physicians from the Health Services Authority. They'll join us. Let's have a chance to chat with them. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Summertime is when Cayman Airways full of people are travel to Jamaica. If you're late for checking your flight, you will lose your seat. Remember now, check-in time for Cayman Airways flight is 2 hours before departure. Make sure you're not late.
King Sports Center Art of Fun Summer Camp is back from July 2nd to August 2nd. Now in its 15th year, the Art of Fun Camp is ideal for kids ages 5 through 10 with activities from football, basketball, dodgeball, squash, rock climbing, arts and craft, dance, singing, and more. Your child can practice physical and social skills while having fun in a safe and secure environment. For more info, call 946-KING. Like King's Sports Center on Facebook, and you can also find them on Instagram or call 946-5464. King Sports Center, providing you with all your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs. Register before May 31st and save 10% on camp registration.
Healthcare Pharmacy, caring about your health for the past 25 years. Radio Cayman's premier health show.
Alzheimer's and dementia, are they the same disorder?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question.
For the Health of It with Tara Bush.
For the Health of It with Tara Bush.
Is heard on Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. and on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Brought to you by Healthcare Pharmacy in Grand Harbor, where they care about your health. Transfer and refill your prescription online. Visit healthcarepharmacy.com. or call 947-8900. Healthcare Pharmacy, now with a new and second location in Governor's Square. The new Healthcare Pharmacy in Governor's Square is open Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Healthcare Pharmacy, where they care about your health.
89.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecasts, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advance notification. Utilizing such may be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman 89.9 FM.
Radio Cayman's Breeze Fusion Walk Run is back. Registrations are now open at www.caymanactive.com, or you can stop by Radio Cayman. Race day will be on Saturday, November 2nd. Mark it on your calendar. And it's going to be bigger and better with the new 10K run for half marathon trainers, as well as the 5K walk run. This year's funds will go to support the Central Scranton Park and also the NCVO. Registration is only $15 if registered by September 30th. And early registrants enter to win a Cayman Airways voucher. The Breeze Fusion 5K 10K walk run is going to be happening Saturday, November 2nd. Don't delay. Register today.
Headlines. With the latest headlines. All the news when you want it. Tune in to Radio Cayman for hourly headlines of the day's top stories.
One of Cayman's bright and shining young stars.
Local, regional, international.
Headlines.
Turning to international news. Updates on the hour between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. Radio Cayman News.
Headlines.
Your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. And I said this a number of times, and I say this, and if it's incorrect, every single one of you will tell me differently. But I believe in a society. There are two things that stand as its pillars: a strong, robust healthcare system and equally strong, robust educational system. And I'm very, very grateful that we're able to have this continuing partnership with our health services authority for a number of reasons. Again, I'm hopeful I'm not overstepping or misspeaking or miscommunicating in which way, but one, it shows what we have available at the HSA, but it also will encourage us as prospective students, as parents, as educators and counselors and career advisors and what have you, to say to our a prospective student, consider a career in health services, whether you become a physician in whichever, whether you serve in administration in whichever. There's so much you can, whether you're an accountant or a lawyer or otherwise, you can still work in the health sector. That is my belief until it's the other way around. But I'm honored now because I think today is special in a number of respects, and it just shows what we can do when we pursue our passion. And as I see you're flanked, I almost want to say, by your your charges. Almost, it's a pleasure, Mom, to have you continually make time to be able to join us in the studio. Good afternoon to you, and we will get to the reason we're here in a second, but to you, a very special good afternoon.
Oh, thank you very much, Jerry.
It is just so remarkable to see you, in a different capacity. And whether we're talking, about our healthcare, whether we're looking at the whole issue of diabetes or anything else, that you've come and you've been so willing to share and to inspire us.
Oh.
You're a great teacher.
Thank you very much. In fact, doctor means teacher, so you're supposed to be a teacher.
Yeah.
Right? You're supposed to be able to teach not only persons that are junior to you, but impart your knowledge to the population.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because it was just here, not long after I started the show, I had an opportunity to interview a visiting physician, and it struck me that many times we're busy, genuinely so. There's demands from the time, just like the parent has to balance as a mother, her time between competing, interests of the work and the family, the needs of the husband, he's just always, and all these things. My attempt at a joke with Susan, she's like, boy, glad you got a radio show. and he said to me as a doctor, as he speaks to his students, because he's one of those lecturers, I remind him, doctor is a teacher. And it was striking that many of them didn't realize that. And these are aspiring male students. And to be a teacher, I think is important because, from you, we get the knowledge.
Yeah, and teaching is a profession or a calling that is beneficial both to the teacher and the teachee, if there's any such word. Because you learn. Yeah. Because each time I'm serious. Each time you teach something, you learn something. Yeah. And you never stop learning.
Well, that's the thing. If you can teach it, then you must know it. Because then the other person has been able to learn it. Not every good football player will be a coach. Right. Not every coach can be a good football player in terms of going in the field and doing that thing that he wants the player to do. But you got to be able to know how to do it, to know that it's not done right.
Yeah. And the good thing is this is communication, right? And what we need to realize that communication is a two-way street. All right. In other words, I'm communicating, I'm talking to you, but you're talking to me. And you'll be surprised to know that by that interaction, how much you yourself is learning from the person that you are supposed to be teaching. Okay. So it's a two-way street, and both persons benefit. Yes. I really love teaching, honestly. I love learning. I'm a frustrating teacher. I'm a frustrated teacher.
Well, I will tell you, of all the things I've had an opportunity to do, I think teaching is not only the most rewarding, it is the most, demanding. And I think as we look at it, but you get a lot. Now, as we go around the table, with the respect to Dr. Jackson, could we start with maybe Dr. Bell first?
Sure.
Could I respectfully just ask for a brief intro? Then Dr. Jackson, the same thing. We'll go to our break. We'll come back. We'll continue. We'll get into the meat of it. And it's always just excited when I get a chance to learn. So would it be possible, Dr. Bell?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My fellow doctors in studio and the host of this program. And good afternoon to the entire Cayman Islands. My name is Dr. Glester Bell. I am a native of Jamaica. I have been working here in the Cayman Islands now for 9.5 years. Having graduated with my primary undergraduate doctor degree from the University of the West Indies, Mona in Kingston, Jamaica. Country boy, Jamaican. But was very much interested in the well-being of people in general. So I became a doctor, and having qualified in 1996, I worked in Jamaica for a while. Have worked in Anguilla, in the British West Indies, and also in the British Virgin Islands in Tortola. Did 3 years in both of those islands. And then I came to the Cayman Islands in 2010. Have worked a lot in the emergency room, but over the last 6 years, I have been in the general practice department. And that's where I feel most comfortable.
Dr. Jackson, he made it easy for you.
Oh, you made it easy. Yes.
Good afternoon to you, Mom.
Good afternoon to my colleagues here with me and you, our host. I am Dr. Lorna Jackson. I am kind of the youngest doctor on the team. Ooh. In terms of years of service, that is. So I actually started out as a radiographer. We would do X-ray and ultrasound. And then I went off into the medical field in my adult years. And it was quite an experience, going in the classroom as an adult with young people. When I had my audio tape, they had their computers, typing. But it was quite an experience. And I graduated in 2010. And I did my internship in Jamaica. And I spent 2 years on the medical ward at HSA, and now I'm in the general practice, which is really my heart.
Okay. Well, when we come back from our news, I was just looking earlier, and you've set it up nicely for us. In 1996, you graduated. 2010, you come from radiography, always wanted to be a physician. And the idea of being a mentor, a teacher, and we tie that in and so that people can start to appreciate that, never, ever sort of forego the passion, that long journey. Without the first step, will never be completed. When we come back, let's talk more about it. All right. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman. Radio
Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
The National Gallery and the National Trust are jointly hosting two visiting filmmaker photographers, Bill Farahawk and David Hartwell, as visiting artists in residence this week. They're working on a project called Homegrown, which explores rare and endangered plant species around the world through the medium of photography. The final images will be the subject of a National Gallery exhibition early in 2020, with educational support provided by the National Trust. They'll also be lecturing about their wider practice this Thursday, the 11th, at the National Gallery at 6 p.m. A parade of presidential contenders and other top Democrats today demanded that U.S. President Donald Trump's labor secretary quit because he helped craft a secret 2008 plea deal that let a wealthy financier avoid prison after allegations that he'd molested teenage girls. While President Trump says he feels badly for Secretary Alexander Acosta, he says he will look, quote, very closely at the issue. Acosta, and by extension Trump, who appointed him to his cabinet post, have drawn renewed attention since federal prosecutors in New York unveiled an indictment yesterday, charging financier Jeffrey Epstein with sexually abusing dozens of underage girls in the early 2000s. Greece's new government will press ahead with tax cuts for households and businesses, despite skepticism from creditors. That, according to the country's finance minister today, that after he and his cabinet colleagues were sworn in. Christos Staikouras' comments during a handover ceremony at the ministry came a day after Greece's creditors during the recent bailout years insisted that key budget targets committed to by the country's outgoing government be adhered to. Those are your headlines. From Radio Cayman's newsroom, I'm April Cummings.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music, and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. And as we look at, sort of nation building and building the pillars in our society, and sometimes if Mr. Bill Adam doesn't mind me using his name, he talks about the cathedral builders. And as we come to understand that, they may never, see the completed project. They don't live the centuries some of those cathedrals have taken to be constructed. But they lay the foundation, they contribute, they start. This is what we have to be. And as we look at, today's sort of celebration, as it were, a doctorate in family medicine, even though you're a physician. Before I get to Dr. Bell in a second, you talked about, 1996. Susan and I were just teenagers then. No, we weren't. We thought we were.
I won't even mention my date off the calendar.
Dr. Matthias was one of our lecturers then.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask, and only because it's Dr. Matthews, if it's okay, if you wouldn't mind from two perspectives. One, because you serve as the mentor, the facilitator, that encourager, the consult, the person who nurtures. And secondly, because it is you and you've, how do we say, been a very much instrumental part of what we see around at HSA. Maybe share a little bit about your journey to date, when you started it. I mean, wow. whatever you wish, Mom. Only because people need to see that you never...
Well, apart from feeling like good cheese, well-aged, I'm realizing now that... but it hits me when I realize that I have doctors now who have graduated, who were born after I graduated. I said, oh my God.
I was mindful.
Okay, it doesn't really matter because I'm one of the persons that believe in lifetime learning. And I graduated UE in the century of 1981. Right? I've worked in Jamaica for quite a bit. I think I've worked everywhere in Jamaica because in KPH, children, whatever.
Right.
And I went into the family medicine program. I did that. Then I came to Cayman. I came to Cayman first in 1987, I think. but I used to do just locums there back and forth. I went back to Jamaica and I started working. I did another degree. I started working at the university, and I also was instrumental in starting the emergency medical service. Myself and Dr. Sigrid, wonderful woman, started in Jamaica, and so we started the service there, started training, and in fact we had persons from Cayman who we had met who were EMTs and paramedics. Okay, in fact, Mr. Archer, I don't know if you know Marcel, and also Mr. Duval, Stephen. Yeah, they were instrumental in helping us. And it's a long association. Yeah. And then we actually sent some of the students from there here to get the experience on the road in the ambulance.
As you share, I'm thinking that we don't, maybe because time moves so fast, that we don't appreciate it. We don't realize in the Cayman context that it was not long ago that houses didn't have air conditioning. It was not long ago, sadly, that we got TV. Right? Maybe we shouldn't have it, but I'll leave that for now. Radio is the way to go. But it wasn't that long ago that we started the ambulance service back in the 70s. You're talking about a very developed industrialized nation like Jamaica that after 81, you and another physician starting the EMS service, right? Here's a small, I call Cayman, small jurisdiction that is advanced and advancing, and yet we can partner. And we need to celebrate these things.
It was a partnership. It was it was a fun time. It was a partnership. And I salute Marcel.
He's
Marcel
amazing.
Archer. He's a brilliant guy. Yeah. And I said, Stephen, and we really, Stephen knows how to E&E here.
Well, as I listened to it and I was thinking, I have a good friend. I didn't reach out to him to get his consent to use his name. He's a physician, well recognized, established, respected. I think he always wanted to be a physician. I would try to make a joke and say that when the rest of us were probably playing football and chasing girls and whatever else we were doing, he probably would, dissecting frogs and looking at, the anatomy. He always wanted to be a physician, and I think that was. He just knew it, and as he went through primary school, middle school, high school, sixth form, university, and 50,000 years later, he's still practicing. Having that passion for someone, for you, I guess you knew, like Dr. Bell, you always want to be a physician.
Well, I will not. I don't know if I should share this,
but just with us, then.
Okay. You will not believe it. When I first decided that I'm going to do medicine, when I was having my first child. Believe it or not, I was living in Canada at the time, and there was this physician. He was so good. And I look and say, you know what? I'm going to be a physician. Believe you me, that is how I started.
Wow.
And then I pursued it after that.
Okay, now with that, as we have the company of, not just Dr. Matthews, but Dr. Bell and Dr. Jackson, in everything we do, there's always seemingly someone who is that person that encourages, that nurtures, that pushes us in a loving way to get there. That coach who says, you know what, you can run this thing in 10 seconds. You just got to believe in yourself, and goes out there with you, rain or shine, to help you. That parent who is invested in taking you and getting you the textbook and making that sacrifice. But sometimes it's your colleagues. It's that co-worker who believes in you and gets you to see what she sees in you that you somehow, I'm not quite sure I have that. How do we get a society to see that there are people that we invest in it so that we make that sacrifice collectively?
Well, I guess one has to be non-judgmental. One has to be kind, right? And to have a degree of love for your fellow man. Right? And realize that we are all a team together.
Okay.
And as I had a old lady that used to live by me, she said, one hand can't clap. Okay? You need more than one hand.
Yes, Mom.
We need teamwork. Yes. And when we look around the world and in the countries nowadays and what have you, you look at the money that is being spent in health and the health of nations, one has to stop and say, are we getting value for money? Okay? Are we interested in the health of the nation, or are we interested in the illness of the nation? Is it just for us to make money? How far will the health dollar stretch if we continue? along these lines.
Okay.
What about our indices of health, like, for instance, the infant mortality rate, the maternal health, the immunization schemes, and the immunization thing, the immunization, that we have, schemes we have to get. And I must say that back to what we're here for, Cayman really and truly is in a good state. I think Cayman has probably the best health, offer the best health here.
In the Caribbean,
at this point in time, right?
Well, Dr. Matthews, go ahead, because you explained that.
No, I'm serious. One of the things that I even was speaking to a colleague yesterday, and I said, one of the good things about Cayman, you can practice first world medicine in what is not, we're not first world, although we like to think so, but we can practice first world medicine here. We have access to investigation, we have access to lab work, whatever you want, you can get it at the tip of the finger.
Right.
But saying that, right, we have to bear in mind that having access is not enough. We have to have educate patients, people. You have to give them knowledge, right? Because knowledge is power. We have to teach people to look after their health and not their illnesses, right? In other words, if we promote health, we'll have less illnesses. And the less illnesses we have is the less it's going to cost the government and the long road, right? So lots of the things are in place here.
Right. I want to pick up on that and ask Dr. Bell, and then come back to Dr. Jackson. The idea of family medicine, let me just rewind it and maybe ask first, when we talk about that, what do we mean by that for those of us who don't? And then secondly, go back, if you 23 years ago, first graduating, the different practices, and then the specialization through your doctorate now in family medicine, and what, one, that could mean for you as a practicing physician, but two, for us as a society. Sort of expanding on what Dr. Matthews was sharing in relation to making wellness and health be a measure of wealth. But Dr. Bell, let's see where we go from there.
So family medicine is that branch of medicine. It's a specialty, actually, that is concerned about the entire family, every single member of a household. So we look at and care for the babies who are just born, the child coming up, the teenager, the adult, the elderly. And it is a comprehensive practice of medicine. We don't just isolate one family member and say we're only gonna see that person. We cover every person of a particular family, and it's holistic, meaning that we care not just to find what we call biomedical aspect of it. So we're not just looking for a germ or say the bacteria that causes it and just prescribe antibiotics. We have put that aside, and now we have what is called patient-centered medicine. And we look at, so the patient comes first. The patient pours out and tells you what he or she is experiencing. And then we as a family physician, yes, we are going to find if there is a bacteria causing the illness, but we also delve into what is behind the person that is what is there a lifestyle practice that is causing a particular problem? What are the social factors that are coming into that's also important in this person. And we after looking at all those areas, then we can zone in and then treat the patient well. So that's what family medicine is all about. It's comprehensive and it's continuous also, meaning that we hope that when we have seen one family member, that person will want to continue to share with us their health experience for the rest of their lives. So we're not just like, say, emergency room where you might just go in and you have a laceration and it's sutured and bye-bye and you're gone. No, we want to develop a relationship with that particular patient. So it's continuous, it's comprehensive, and that's what it is all about.
We call it longitudinal care.
Longitudinal
Go
care.
ahead.
All right, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we consider it longitudinal care in that, as Dr. Bell mentioned, that is a whole. We care for people throughout all the life cycle, throughout the whole life cycle. Okay, and is very importantly is that we practice what is known as evidence-based medicine.
All right.
Okay.
Now, when we come back from our break, I want to ask you more about it, but also ask Dr. Jackson that. I don't want to say transition, but you started out in radiology and then into physician. You get into family medicine and the practice. And we talk about some of the consequences of, I guess I wrote down the notion of societal factors and the impact on the health and the relationship management, the patient-centric approach. Just like you would in the corporate environment where you're trying to manage the customer's expectation. Well, this time it's even more important, but it's still relationship. Yeah. How does that play in when we come to Dr. Matthews into this notion of healthcare and access to health insurance, whether you're today seeing Dr. A and tomorrow Dr. B and the next day Dr. C, how is that affecting so that we're seeing part of it? Just some things for the political aspect of it, but we won't get too much into that. All right, when we come back, more talk today. We ask you to rejoin us. Stay tuned.
Sometimes having a middleman is not a bad thing, especially when it comes to insurance. Do you know that when it comes to cost, ease, speed, and peace of mind, insurance brokers ranked higher than when customers buy direct? So, for all your insurance needs, call Fidelity Insurance. We're the middleman you want. Call us today at 949-7822. Fidelity. We're good for you.
RC Fusion featuring Billboard pop hit songs and more from the 70s to the 90s.
RC Fusion.
Weekdays from 10 a.m. till 12. RC Fusion.
Brought to you by Nathan General Maintenance and Construction. You break it, they fix it. Call the General for a free quote. 917-7586.
RC Fusion.
Did you know that in the event of a hurricane, water designated for the purposes of drinking, cooking, and bathing must be disinfected before use? Water may be disinfected either by boiling or through the use of chlorine bleach. To disinfect through boiling, simply leave the water on the fire for 1 minute after it begins to boil. To disinfect with bleach, add 3 ounces of chlorine bleach to every 1,000 gallons of water. If you are not able to smell the bleach in the water after 30 minutes, then add half of the amount of bleach that was added during the initial application. Recheck the water after 15 minutes to ensure that there is a residual bleach smell. A residual bleach smell is an indicator that the water has been properly disinfected. For more post-hurricane safety tips, visit DEH website at deh.gov.ky.
The Breeze Fusion is back Saturday, November 2nd.
Bigger and better.
Now featuring a 5K walk run and a 10K run for half marathon trainers. Join the fun and help raise funds for the Central Scranton Park and the NCVO. Save the date or register now at CaymanActive.com or at Radio Cayman Studios. Registration is only $15 if registered by September 30th. And all early registrants enter to win a Cayman Airways voucher. The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run. Saturday, November 2nd.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. And in the studio, Dr. Matthews, Dr. Bell, and Dr. Jackson joins us. And, we're celebrating their, I guess I can say their completion of the doctorate in family medicine as physicians, but nonetheless, it just shows you the continued investment in our people. And I don't know if they don't mind me saying nation building in a sense. Right, Dr. Matthews?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And as we see more young Caymanians taking up the mantle of being professions in the healthcare field, it is good that we have people who are well trained, who can be mentors and who can help to guide them, because in the long run it's going to be better for the country, right? And if what I'm trying to say, what I meant first, what I was talking initially, is that yes, we have the means to get optimum health care here, but we have to sell it to the population, right? We have to have a buy-in. In other words, you have to do certain things in order to have optimum health.
Okay.
Your behavior have to change, right? And by the behavior change, you can cut down on your chronic illnesses and the side effects and etc. It goes on.
Can I have you come back and we keep promising to have this discussion then, because I think the accessibility.
We have it. One of the things, one of the mandates of the World Health Organization, where healthcare is concerned, where primary care is concerned, essentially, it must be affordable, it must be accessible. One of the things, available, and adaptable.
Yep,
right?
The 4 years.
Right. So in Cayman, it's accessible, meaning that you have a health. Yes, it is. It is. Primary care. I see. No, I'm looking. I'm reading your expression. I probably shouldn't.
Don't. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. I apologize for that.
Because there's a clinic, a health center in every district.
Yes.
Right. I mean, just a while ago, I raced from the other end of the island to here.
I know.
To get here, and I was
at the prison just now.
You see,
it's accessible.
Where else do you get? Healthcare is accessible. Now, for the majority of the population, it is affordable. Why? Because we have a national insurance. Okay? But then you also have people that fall between the cracks. The government does try to give a basic package, and in some cases it's not enough, because if you have a chronic illness, you cannot, one visit a year will not do. But I'll not get into that part.
That's the next discussion.
I will not get into that. Okay?
But we're having that.
And it's also adaptable, meaning that if we are doing a particular practice and we realize that the evidence shows that there's a better way to do it, or a more cost-effective, a more efficient way to do it, then we are adaptable in that sense. You might ask, why family medicine? Why primary care? The whole idea is that we are the entrance to the health system, and what family medicine is very much concerned with is prevention, right? And health promotion. So we try to promote health. We try to teach, as we should, and also we should also be able to impart not just knowledge, but behavior change that will augment for better health, right? Because if you have less, for instance, take diabetes, right? We are probably wired, half the population here is wired to become, when I say wired, I mean genetically prone to be diabetic, all right? You don't must be diabetic because based on your lifestyle and whatever, your exercise, your attitude, whatever, you can prevent it and prevent the complication. You say to people, well, you have to exercise. And they said exercise. They start to think, no, we'll have to go join a gym. That's the gym money. Then I have to get the trashy clothes so I can look nice. No. I say there is a school in every district, and each school have a yard, a playing field. And you can just get up and walk, right? You don't need to do all of that. In other words, we have to make it, we have to play a role where we can guide people, show them the way to better health. Okay? Things like, yes, we do realize that diet is important and what have you, and people are going to tell you that, well, to eat healthy is expensive. No, it's not, right? If you can't afford snapper, you can afford sardine, which is still protein, it is still fish, right? So those are the type of things that you might say, this is not health, this is not medicine, but it is. And that's what family medicine is all about, to get into the psychosocial aspects of life in order to keep people healthy, based on the very best evidence there is.
Yeah, I've always, honestly, that's why I believe the two, would forgive me when I first came. I would just enamored with Dr. Matthews and zone in on her, because you encourage us, you inspire us, you educate us, No, Dr. Jackson?
Yeah.
Come on board.
Yes, I'm not the speaker here. I concur with what Dr. Matthews and Dr. Bell, had to say. And Family medicine for me is a passion. The first time I was drawn to family medicine was actually from the example of a family practitioner here in the Cayman Islands. I don't know if you remember Dr. Grant.
Oh, yes.
Yes. But my father was sick. He's the doctor that my family usually see, and my father was sick on a Sunday. And we had to call him. And he was dressed in his clothes to church. And he stopped, came and sorted out my dad, and he had to be sent off to Jamaica urgently. Mm-hmm. And that stuck in my mind, to see what a family physician did, because not every doctor would be able to do that and had the mind to do that. But that has impressed me through my life.
Very good.
So that really drew me into family medicine, because having the background of radiology, I could have become a radiologist as well. That's another area that is kind of lacking too. But I feel more drawn to the family medicine as the others. We look at patients from the cradle to the grave. We build that relationship with them, that rapport. And primary medicine is very important because, as Dr. Mathis was saying, most times we are the first ones that the patient actually see. It's a little bit more difficult to see a specialist in other fields, but there most times the patients come to the clinic or the OP, and we have the access for them to just walk in and see us, whereas you have to make appointments other times. So we are the first one to kind of see them, and if we can catch them in the right at the beginning in terms of educating them about healthy choices, that would thwart a lot of the chronic illnesses that we see today.
If I may ask, then, just listen to what you shared and remembering, sort of the mantra, must be accessible, available, affordable, adaptable. And the changes that we've seen, primarily in the U.S. and some of the challenges that were there. In the Cayman context, there was a time, just like you referenced, Dr. Grant, did the physician you saw, as an infant, as a teen. That's family medicine. Then it changed for different reasons. We were, conditioned to have, physicians have bedside manners and the like, to being churning out, every 20 minutes, 15 minutes. We see these things. How do we make sure that we get, forgive me, I had too much presentation earlier. We get to the point where we still have that level of accessibility and adaptability, but then we build a rapport so that we know the history of the patient.
We need to train more family physicians here in the Cayman Islands. And yes, when you graduate from UWI and from some other institutions, you have your basic medical degree, but it goes much more than that, and that's why we did the specialty over the 4 years. You can get into this program quite easily, if you have that interest in family medicine. And after 2 years, you can earn your postgraduate diploma in family medicine, which is you can exit at that time. But at that time, you would have gained so much more knowledge than just the primary undergraduate degree that everybody who becomes a physician gets. You're now able to make diagnoses, care for the patients from that psychosocial aspect, and with your evidence-based training. So not because somebody, you see another doctor giving this medication and it works, but you can now say, okay, the evidence shows that when you give that, this happens. So you can graduate at that at the end of the 2 years, and you can serve very well in the community at that level. If you go on to the other 2 years, which Lorna did, myself, and Dr. Martinez, you become more specialized. You're now able to do research and understand what the literature is saying about different modes of treatment and management of patient, and can make better choices. So we want to encourage young people out there who might have a desire to go into medicine. Family medicine is a good choice. That's what the nation needs. If we can, an ounce of what's this
prevention?
An ounce of prevention. That's how he says. An ounce of prevention is
better than a
pound of cure.
Yep.
Yes, we need people who can, as the gatekeepers, so to speak, who will pick up things from an early time and prevent it from escalating. And that's what's happening now. So many of our people are coming down with diabetes and hypertension and heart disease, and these things are preventable. And we are the ones, as family physicians, who are the guardians, who can say, if you do this and this is how you do it, we can stop that scourge from happening. We need more family physicians.
Yeah, but we are not saying that is the only person that value is a family physician. Definitely not.
Definitely not.
Because as you know that we have specialists, we have to. But the important thing is that we ought to know when it is time or when you, in other words, be good diagnosticians, right? You don't have a patient running from post to pillar to find out what is wrong with them, or having them sit and wait for a long time to see a specialist. Because right, if you can manage most of the things, it's a fact.
Yes,
I mean, nothing like psychiatry, right? One of the things that we are trained in this particular program is, when we do realize that there's a lot of mental illness out there, and just the very tip of the iceberg reaches to the psychiatrist, right? Which ought. But then what about the rest of the population, right? We ought to be trained to be able to manage those. All right, but what we are trying to say about family medicine per se is that it is the management of chronic diseases, chronic illnesses, wellness, right? Say Dr. Bell mentioned emergency. Yes, there's a need. In other words, there is a need for all the various specialties and what have you. In some cases, it is episodic management, meaning that you come with an illness, you get seen, and you moved on. That's episodic, right? Mm-hmm. But the chronic ones is when they at E&E see a patient who have probably kidney infection and fever and need to get emergency resuscitation, and then you send them back to us for us to see why this occurred. What are you doing that you're not supposed to be doing?
Long-term
It's long-term management.
All right.
What's the best way to manage?
Certainly want to be able to continue pursuing this because it'll cause more of us to be able to see the value. But in closing out, when we look at this particular program on the auspices of University of West Indies, just give us a final how, we told the 2 or the 4 years, how often and accessible is this, and how do we access it?
Well, I maybe should give you a little background on how we got into it in the first place. I have a little thing here on behalf of Dr. Jefferson, our medical director. I was told that I should go since he can't be here, right? And I'm just looking at a letter that he had sent to the family medicine program, saying that we were accredited by the Caribbean Association of Medical Councils to be considered for that we could do. It could be a teaching hospital. And we had a team come down from the university, came and look around at our facilities and what we have, and there are consultants, and also went and looked as far as at our lab, and then looked at our access to continuing medical education. And they were very impressed with that, and we were passed. Now, this is a different accreditation from what we are seeking now, a different type. I mean, you must have heard about we are trying to be accredited on the worldwide scale. This is the international accreditation where if we pass, we'll be one of the top-notch hospital or providers of healthcare in the world. That's a worldwide one, right? Yep. So first of all, we went regionally. That was the Caribbean Association. Now we are going that way, internationally. But we did that. So the program is there, and there was a buy-in from the powers that be in the Medical Council and at the HSA. And we started in 2013. I think we had one person at the time, Dr. Williams, who was working in emergency, and he started out. He was a trailblazer, and then the rest fell into play. Somehow I was
co-opted.
I was co-opted into being preceptor and clinical advisor and everything else, mother mother of brewing.
Very helpful to us.
Yep.
And, I remember when Dr. Bell here had to stop for a little while because of problems. I kept on at him and said, "No, you can't stop. You can't."
I had some personal struggles.
And I said, "No, man, you got to come back and do it, But overall, I don't want to say I've taken over the whole thing, but what I'm just trying to say is that the reason why we have this is we want to offer optimum health care to the nation, all right?
Mm-hmm.
There is a place for education and a buy-in. There's a place for us to find out why things are not happening the way they're supposed to happen. I'm serious. One of the questions that I want to find out is why it is that some people have access, they can afford it because they have insurance, right? They have some kind of education, and yet still not taking the medication. That's a research project that I'm really interested in, to find out what it is that we need to address that can get people to do what they ought to do in order to prevent the complications of the illness. Because we really can't afford dialysis. Dialysis is an expensive business.
Yep.
And it's in the health. It is stretching the health dollar.
Well, right? I would, if you would be so inclined, maybe I shouldn't make the invitation publicly because maybe there'll be intervening forces to say, no, she can't come back home. But these are concerns and considerations that a society need to have publicly, borrowing from the expertise that we have. And I think something that we recognize that we have within our shores, we're not leveraging. And with the greatest respect, those of us who live and work here, whether we've only been here for a couple of months, whether we've been here for generations, if we don't share and celebrate, hold the mantle high, demand excellence, we can advance our society. And it's to our own safety and security and stability. Now, as we wrap up the discussion, I must say publicly thanks to Ms. Susan. I lost track of the time. We are going over a few minutes, but healthcare is crucial to all of us. Could I respectfully, perhaps Dr. Bell, maybe ask you for some closing thoughts, Dr. Jackson, and then of course, as we start, we'll conclude with the always indomitable Dr. Matthews. So, Dr. Bell?
Yes. Well, I just want to say thanks to my mother for having... She's not hearing me, but my mother really instilled some great values in me at an early age. And although she didn't have the education that a lot of, like what I have now, but she set the foundation there for me. And then having come here for the powers that be, I want to thank God for Dr. Jefferson and Dr. Cummins, Dr. McLaughlin, who saw in me also when I was in emergency that, you do very well in general practice. Dr. Anna Matthews for just being there for me and for all of us in the program for all these 4 years. Couldn't have done it without her. And, of course, Dr. Erica Simmons, who facilitated it because we fall under her, she being the head of the general practice department. So we just want to do our best for the Cayman community. We love Cayman. I've been here for 10 years. I must love it. And just want to offer excellent service. That's what we hope to do. See you whenever you come.
General practice. Dr. Jackson.
Yes, so I want to give thanks to people who have really played a vital role in me being where I am today. Thanks to my parents, they gave me the start, even though, they couldn't really afford to send me to medical school when I wanted to in my younger age. But they were there for me, and thanks to my husband who, when the Lord spoke to me, because I can say that now, it's really the Lord led me to go into medicine. And I felt like, I could make this. And, he said, this was not a foolish idea, because I was thinking of there's mortgage to pay, school bills, all the bills to be paid. And he said, no, that's not a foolish idea, So he was there for me from the very beginning and helped me along, encouraged me. And then Dr. Matthews here, who I remember once when I was wondering if I could make it again, it's, because there's challenges as an adult studying, and she really encouraged me, Dr. Matthews, from the start. She was there with me and encouraged me. And to see that I ended up in family medicine, being my preceptor, it was really awesome. And I want to thank the Cayman Islands government, too, because I didn't know where I was going to get this money from to go. I actually went to St. Matthews, and the Cayman Islands government gave me a scholarship, and I'm so grateful for that. And again, thanks to Dr. Simmons, who, helped us to get the time that we needed to do the studying.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to give my best to the Cayman Islands. There are a lot of potential here. Even in younger folks, I want to encourage people not to give up. You can make it. I've seen people with a lot of talents, and they can tap into the resources because I feel that the government is willing to help. So I just want to encourage them not to give up, but to keep trying.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Matthews.
And the school I went to, as for high school, we had a motto, Age, and more. That's Excelsior. I mean, get higher. Aim at higher, right? The universe, aim high and keep going higher, right? That's what it really meant. And I would like to encourage all the youngsters who are in school now and who think that they would like to be a part of the healthcare system to keep on keeping on. If you decide to do medicine, the world is your oyster because it is such a wide variety of things you can do, different specialties. I'm here pushing family medicine, but even if you're not a people person, you can do medicine. You can be a pathologist.
She said it.
I don't mean not to my pathologist. No disrespect. I had a friend,
just tease you, man.
My very good friend. I remember when I was the association, the alumni president. We were trying to make some money, and we were going around to collect money ask money from drugstores, pharmacies and things. And my friend, Dr. Williams, who's a pathologist, used to come here and do gross pat. Somebody said to her, how dare you go to a pharmacist? When last did you write a prescription? Because all our patients are dead. But it was a joke,
Yes,
so if you don't like people you still can do medicine, right? Yeah. If you prefer to, or if you, so please, my pathologist friends out there, I didn't mean it that way.
Don't worry, man.
Okay.
They are the best MC who honestly.
Yeah. We have a very good one at HSC, Dr. Joy, who is into research. And there's so much talent here. There's so much, and I really wish people would really and truly tap into it.
That's it.
There's so much knowledge being offered. We have these CMEs that sometimes you don't have to be a doctor to understand what. Dr. Cummins had a thing on antibiotic I think the other day. Yeah, that even if you're not a doctor, you could, it's really, we have it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and on that note, I just want to thank the Cayman Islands government for giving me this opportunity. I'm not Caymanian, but I have come here, and the government and the HSA gave me that opportunity to work here and to specialize in family medicine. And it might not have happened elsewhere, but I really take my hats off to the powers that be that allowed that to happen. And I love it here, and just try to practice very good medicine here so that everyone can benefit.
Amen. Thank you all very much. And as I know you share the same love, respect, and admiration we have for Dr. Matthews. Yes,
love you.
Thanks so much to the HSA, and hopefully we'll continue to have this discussion publicly and encourage more and more for people to look at.
Yeah, the HSA is a good institution. They're I'm not pushing guys. I'm putting a plug for them, but they do try.
Yes,
and we have a cadre of people that is really working hard for the betterment of the country. Yeah. Yes, we have our differences and our fights, yes, but guess what? We're a family, and we know what we are about.
Yeah. We have wonderful physicians. My good classmate has asked me to pass along his, special hello and well wishes to his classmate, Dr. Ebanks. Good afternoon to you, Dr.
Yes, he's my very good friend, classmate in medical school. Yeah.
So, small place, good family.
Yes. Dr. Ebanks,
awesome guy, man.
He was one of the person that really pushed this program.
Yeah, man.
When we were coming up against obstacles, he really and truly said, no, it's good.
Yeah, he's an amazing fellow. We don't get into that. All right. Again, thanks, Ms. Susan, for giving us 15 minutes and 15 seconds extra.
Thanks to Ms. Susan, too.
Yes.
The most wonderful DJ.
Isn't she? I'll tell you what.
Music lady, man.
What? All right. Well, this is the good that is the Cayman Islands, and I thank you all for sharing what you do, and I trust that all of us. I say this with the greatest respect. This is where we make our bread and butter, where we hang our shingle, or where we lay our heads. Right. Let's make it the very best that we can. Yeah. Together.
Yeah.
I
agree.
So, I love this place, man. Honestly, it's home. What's more than that?
I've been here since 1976.
Yeah?
I've come to love it.
All right, well.
I've been here from 87, so.
There you go.
Wow. And my husband has given 25 years to Cayman area, so.
He's given. We'll get it back. Until tomorrow. Be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Fidelity Bank. For all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you.